Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to Nairobi for the 26th Annual General Meeting of the Africa Trade and Investment Development Insurance. Your presence here as member states, shareholders, development partners, and private sector leaders reflect our shared conviction that Africa's prosperity will depend on the strength of its own institutions and the depth of our partnership. 25 years ago, Kenya joined fellow COMESA member states to establish what was then the Africa Trade Insurance Agency. It was founded on a simple belief that Africa deserved institutions capable of transforming risk into opportunity and attracting investment on terms that reflect our true potential rather than outdated perceptions. Today, that belief stands vindicated. ATIDI has become Africa's premier institution, multilateral trade and investment insurer, supporting more than $93 billion in trade and investment while holding investment grade A ratings from both Standard & Poor's and Moody's. Congratulations, ATIDI. Yet, we gather at an extraordinary moment. The global economy is reordering. Trade is being reconfigured. Geopolitics is fragmenting, and development finance is under tremendous strain. These pressures are not perceptions, they are real. But they also present Africa with an unprecedented opportunity to redefine its place in the global financial system. For years, we have championed a fairer global financial architecture, one that stops mispricing Africa and African risk and making our capital needlessly expensive. That call remains right. I have been, as they have said, to every forum and every meeting, and I have stated our position unequivocally that we do not want a system that favors us. We want a system that treats all of us equally. And that is not too much to ask. But Africa cannot wait for reform from elsewhere. While the world debates reform, Africa must build. We must complement the reform of the global financial architecture by building a stronger African financial architecture, one that mobilizes African capital, mitigates African risk, and finances Africa's development on Africa's terms. The evidence is compelling. Africa holds nearly $4 trillion in long-term domestic savings through pension funds, insurance assets, and central bank reserves. Yet the continent faces an annual financial gap of more than $400 billion. We attract barely 1% of global institutional investment and only 4% of foreign direct investment. Even today, African countries borrow at rates between 200 and 400 basis points above their fundamentals and where the fundamentals justify. This paradox reveals a simple truth. Africa does not suffer from a shortage of capital, and that has been said by both the CEO of ATIDI and my good friend Sidi. We do not suffer from a shortage of capital. And I say so even when I specifically talk about our own country, Kenya. When I came into office, I championed and I explained to the people of Kenya why savings is important. In our National Social Security Fund, we had 312 billion Kenya shillings saved in 60 years. But in just 2 years, we have moved it from 312 to 680 billion. By next year, we will triple what we have saved in 60 years in 3.5 years. What does that mean? It means there is no shortage of capital. It is us getting organized and getting the resources we have organized and using it for our own development. So when we say there is no shortage of capital in our continent, that statement is very, very true. From my own experience, in just 3 years, I have seen how we can mobilize domestic resources. It is easy. Actually, it's not easy. It is difficult to go borrowing money from people. They subject you to all manner of things. You know, do this, go and pass this law. How about those things, what are those ones called? You go and pass the sexuality laws, go and do this, go and do this. You know, things that have nothing to do with the money you're looking for. But, of course, you are subjected to such if you refuse to do what you have to do. Let me give another explanation. We decided as Kenyans that we are going to get rid of slums. We're going to work towards getting rid of slums. We're going to build a big portfolio of a housing program. It's been in our books for many years. We tried to borrow money from different places to implement the program, and it was not possible. It was not tenable. It was not practical. It was not sustainable. But we decided that we are going to put together a housing fund, and we are going to pay 1.5% of our incomes to that fund, and employers would do the same. Today, just in 3 years, we have built a portfolio of $9.3 billion. How much? $9.3 billion. That is 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings. Our own resources, Kenyan resources. So if there was any doubt in anybody's mind of our capacity to raise domestic resources and for us to drive our development on our terms. Please erase that doubt. And that is why this evening is very significant to me. When we had the Africa Forward Summit here last month, we made a conscious decision as leaders of this continent that we are going to rethink how we finance our development. We are going to work with partners, and we are immensely grateful for the World Bank, the IMF, IBRD, and all the other partners that have worked with us. They have walked this journey with us. But they have done so much. But there is space for us to do more ourselves. And we cannot delegate what we can do for ourselves for others to do for us. It is not fair to ourselves. It is not fair to them. We must do what we must do. And we made a very conscious decision and said, we must stop the blame game. We must stop blaming others for our own underdevelopment. And I remember one head of state saying that nobody owes us development. We owe it to ourselves. Development is first and foremost our responsibility as leaders in this continent. African development is first and foremost our responsibility. And we must take charge of it. It is easy to blame other people, especially for failures that have nothing to do with them, but everything to do with us. So we decided that we are going to do, that we took a position, which you remember my good brother Sid. I put that position very squarely at the G7, that as a continent, we no longer want relationships that are based on dependency. No, we want relationships that recognize sovereign equality. Number two, we said we do not want relationships built on assistance or charity. We want relationships that are built on partnerships that are mutually beneficial. And number three, we said we are going to reject any engagements that are built on exporting African raw materials and extraction, that we are going to work on investments that create win-win outcomes for investors and for ourselves, and that is built around value addition and value creation and creation of jobs right here in our soil. Those three are the irreducible minimum for us and our engagement with partners and friends going into the future. But that also places responsibility on us, that we must do our part of the bargain. And that is why I must commend in a very special way the President of the Africa Development Bank, my friend Olta. Let us clap for this man. I mean, he's a, breath of fresh air. Because when he came on board, He removed the old rivalries amongst our African multilateral institutions, financial institutions. There was an unhealthy competition between, Africa Development Bank, Afri-Exim Bank, Trade and Development, a competition that was not necessary. It is better for them working together. And you remember very well, we took a position at the Africa Union and said, we are going to work with all our financial institutions, African multilateral financial institutions. And we took a decision at the Africa Union that we are going to endorse and support and contribute to these institutions, so that because they understand our situation, they understand our development, they know us better, they work with us from our continent. Some other institutions, you can forgive them. They are in New York, they are in Paris, they are in Washington, and they can have all manner of perceptions. For example, the other day there was a problem of Ebola in DRC, and everybody cancelled meetings all over the place because some people don't understand that there is almost 4,000 kilometers from Kenya to DRC. So these are some of the perceptions that inform this space. And I am very happy that this evening, in this annual general meeting dinner for the ATIDI, we have the presence of Africa Development Bank, Trade and Development Bank, Afri-Exim, I'm sure are represented, and all the other institutions, Africa Finance Corporation, they were here the other day. And we have taken the position as a continent that we are going to support these institutions. Endorse them and also put our resources behind them, because that is how they will gather the legitimacy, they will get the financial muscle to be able to drive and mobilize our own development. This understanding drives Kenya's leadership of the new African financial architecture for development. My good brother Alta, you can count on Kenya 100%. We believe in the new African financial architecture for development. It is going to be the solution for our development. And we are matching what we are saying in Kenya with what we are doing. We are mobilizing our own savings. As I've just told you, we are going to triple our savings in the next 3 years. We are mobilizing our own resources. The National Infrastructure Fund, which we enacted the law in the last, 3 months, in March. By end of this week, we will have mobilized 300 billion Kenya shillings into the National Infrastructure Fund. That is roughly about $2.3 billion. And it was very sweet news when I heard you guys say that for every dollar, you can help us mobilize $10. So we are in good space. I had told the citizens of my great country that we have a 5 trillion program. And they were looking at me and wondering how that was going to be possible. You've heard this gentleman talk here. We are already at 300 billion Kenya shillings. If you multiply that by 10, that is 3 trillion. So we are just waiting for another 2 trillion and we can implement all our projects. That is how it works. Good people. That is how it works. Ndio mimi nawaambia saa zingine tutumia akili. You know, for those of us who understand that language. To move Africa from a recipient of global capital to a mobilizer of its own, from fragmented institutions to coordinated strength, and from dependence on external risk assessment to African institutions capable of pricing African opportunities correctly. That is the mission. That is what NAFAD, that is what the new architecture is going to do for us in this continent. At the heart of this vision is the Alliance of African Multilateral Financial Institutions. Through this alliance, the Africa Development Bank Group, Africa Export-Import Bank, Africa Finance Corporation, Africa Trade and Investment Development Insurance, Trade and Development Bank Group, Africa Reinsurance Corporation, ZEP Re, or what was formerly PTA Insurance Company, Shelter Afrique Development Bank, East African Development Bank, Africa Solidarity Bank, Fund for Export Development in Africa, West African Development Bank, and Regional Maritime Development Bank can coordinate their balance sheets, share risk, and mobilize capital at continental scale. Good people, please don't let us down. You know, don't let us down. Because this is our moment, you know. And I am very happy that I am in this space as a leader in Kenya and in this continent when we have leaders in our financial institutions that are as aligned as these good people who lead this institution. I am pleased to announce that today, in the cabinet, the government of Kenya approved the establishment of the Secretariat of the Alliance for African Multilateral Institutions here in Nairobi. I did commit that we were going to provide space for a Secretariat for the Alliance so that we can create more muscle and strength by being coordinated. Within this alliance, ATIDI occupies a uniquely strategic place. Investment follows confidence, and confidence follows credible risk mitigation. For 25 years, ATIDI has demonstrated that African institutions can transform risk into opportunity. Yet Africa still faces a guarantee and insurance gap of up to $50 billion every year. One of the greatest barriers to unlocking private investment in infrastructure, energy, industry, agriculture, and trade. Every dollar invested in our guarantee architecture has the potential to mobilize $10 more in private capital. That is why I call for the accelerated recapitalization of ATIDI. Our ambition should be to build ATIDI into a continental guarantee institution with a capital base of $2 billion, supported by a capital framework capable of delivering guarantee capacity that will go all the way to $10 billion annually. And I want to commend the Africa Development Bank Group. After the meeting we had here of Africa Forward last month, my good friend Sidi here went to the board, and you just heard from him, the board of Africa Development Bank approved to increase their shareholding in ATIDI 5 times, from 3% to 14%. Now, Africa Development Bank becomes the largest shareholder of ATIDI. Kenya was the largest shareholder until the other day. I would have been unhappy that we have been overtaken. But I am happy that we have more money to seek guarantee for our development. So congratulations, Africa Development Bank. What we will do, however, is that Kenya will continue to invest our own resources also in ATIDI to support the journey to ATIDI having $2 billion of their capital for them to be able to undertake the mandate that they have. Today, I invite every member state represented here to join Kenya in launching the Nairobi Capital Compact on Africa economic sovereignty. The compact rests on 5 commitments: to progressively recapitalize ATIDI, to strengthen the alliance of African multilateral financial institutions, to mobilize Africa's domestic capital, to expand our guarantee and risk-sharing capacity, and number 5, to build globally competitive African multilateral financial institutions. This is an invitation to governments, institutional investors, and development partners alike to finance Africa's transformation on the correct terms. Kenya's confidence is grounded in experience. Since its inception, ATIDI has supported more than $7 billion in investment across Kenya's energy, transport, manufacturing, agriculture, and trade sectors. In the past 2 years alone, it has facilitated $960 million in new investment. Projects such as Menengai Geothermal, Lake Turkana Wind Power, and Kipeto Wind Farm demonstrate what effective risk mitigation makes possible. Our bottom-up economic transformation agenda requires investment on a scale that public resources alone cannot provide. Private capital must therefore become our partner. Strengthening ATIDI is not only in Africa's interest, it is firmly in Kenya's national interest. Kenya will lead from the front. Accordingly, I announce today our intention as we go into the future, as I did in our last meeting, Kenya's capital participation in ATIDI progressively to increase with an initial $25 million. We will continue to increase until we arrive at $65 million. To demonstrate that commitment, we will continue positioning Nairobi as Africa's premier financial and development hub. In support of that vision, We prepared to provide strategic institutional support, including the allocation of land. This evening, I have a title here, issued by the government of Kenya to facilitate the establishment and expansion of the headquarters and regional offices of African multilateral financial institutions, specifically to ATIDI. And I want to present the title to my good friend. Makofi yajae kabisa. Let's give a warm clap for that. Thank you very much. Please, let's take our seats. This is a 2-acre piece of land in Upper Hill, valued at $8 million. Our predecessors secured Africa's political independence. Our generation must now secure Africa's economic sovereignty. That sovereignty will not be won through declarations. It will be won by building trusted institutions, by mobilizing our own capital first, by crowding in investment from global markets, by pricing Africa's risk correctly, and by financing our development competitively. Let Nairobi be remembered as the city where Africa chose implementation over advocacy, where fragmented balance sheets became a collective financial strength, and where our continent took another decisive step towards economic sovereignty. My good friends, I wish you well. My very best wishes. I am very, very proud of this evening because finally we are beginning to make the right decisions. Bold, decisive, focused, and right. So thank you very much. Enjoy your dinner. And unfortunately, I will not be able to attend the meeting tomorrow. I have explained my deputy will be there because I have a family matter to attend to. So, asante sana, welcome to Nairobi again, and my very best wishes. Thank you.